Hey friends, welcome back for Coffee and Convo. I am Ashley and I am here with Anna Marie Dandy and Sierra Wilston. And today we are speaking on equality in marriage. So I am going to give it to whoever wants to start on the floor. But we are going to talk about first, what are egalitarianism?
Egalitarianism.
Did not say that
Good
right. I
word.
knew it. And complementarianism.
Got that one. Nailed it, girl.
Thank you. Can you tell us what the difference is, please?
Sure. Egalitarianism is the biblical idea, notice I put in it's a biblical idea of equality between men and women in marriage, in ministry, and the world. Mm-hmm. And complementarianism is the idea that women are basically a subclass. They are the helper. They are I hate using the word subordinate, but I don't know any other way to explain it, but it's like they're, secondary to men in marriage, home, everything. Women can't be preachers, pastors, teachers, leaders. Women can't really hold any function inside a church other than like Sunday school teacher, administrative assistant, whereas egalitarianism empowers women to do everything. If a man can do it, a woman can do it. Does that summarize it pretty well?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
And those are the two major ideas
Yeah.
that are battling each other.
Yes.
It's this spiritual battle, really, that's going on. And how are women going to be perceived in the church?
Yes, listen, I wrote a post years ago. I said one of Satan's greatest wins was getting people to believe the lie of patriarchy. Because with one lie, you silenced half of the church.
Yeah.
Yeah. One lie, and women are silenced.
Yeah.
What does equality look like in each of our marriages? Or I should say speak to each of your marriages. What does equality look like?
I mean, for Greg and I know it's kind of morphed through the years, just even as I've learned more about biblically what does this look like, even as, as we've grown in believers either. Greg was never one to be like, I'm the man, listen to me. He was never like that. But when I became a believer, I did not grow up in the church. So the initial teachings I had was definitely that the woman is underneath and all that. So I felt like that was my job to do, and Greg never enforced that, but I had taken that internally. Mm-hmm. So I know I acted upon that, even on things like I had wanted to have a bunch of kids. Mm-hmm. And Greg wanted to have kids too, mm-hmm. but by the time that we had our third, Greg was more like, I don't know. And I felt like, well, you know what? I'm just going to come underneath him. I'm not going to speak out. I'm just, because I felt like that was what I was responsible to do. Now, at this point, I would have chosen a very different way to handle that. Yeah. So like Greg has always encouraged me. He has always let me be me and saw gifts in me and let me kind of do what I wanted. So I feel really blessed with that, but I'm so grateful now that we're at a point where both of us see that women have as much value in the relationship, in the marriage, where it's not just submit, woman.
Yep.
That Greg says that funnily sometimes. He thinks it's really funny when when we're having a disagreement. He's like, submit, woman, because that will get me laughing and no longer like,
It's my friend Mark. He's always making comments about my places in the kitchen. So whenever I cook dinner for him and my sister-in-law, he's always like, that's right, because that's your rightful place, Sierra. And we laugh about it. But I was like, if it was anyone else.
How about for you?
It's interesting because for me, egalitarianism in marriage was a little bit of a journey because I grew up with parents who acted that out. But I went to a school and a church who did not teach that. And so it was kind of conflicting messages for me a little bit. And I ended up in an abusive relationship in 2012 and 2013 because I was convinced that I needed a man to lead me. And so I spent a year trying to get this man to be something he was never going to be because, I'd been told that I needed to be submissive to a man and I needed to let the man lead, and this guy just was not capable of it, for one. and he didn't want to. And, so when I got out of that relationship and I, started talking with women in my life, I started realizing that like, I look to Jesus to lead me. Jesus leads me. And when I'm married, we lead each other. And that took a little while to get there. So when I met Luke I technically met Luke when I was the worship pastor at Face to Face Church back in 2018. I was leading worship, and there's this guy with blue hair kneeling on the floor, and the Lord gave me a prophetic word for him. And luckily for me, I was in a church that women were empowered to literally do all the things. And so I ended up prophesying over Luke, and then I didn't talk to him for a year and a half. And then we matched on Bumble. And I didn't remember him, and we started talking, went on our first date, and one of the first things is I'm like, I'm in my 30s. I am not a casual dater by any means, especially not at this point in my life. So I was like, hard questions now, because I'm not wasting my time. And one of the first questions I asked Luke was, I need to know your stance on marriage. Like, because if this is what you believe, that's not going to work for me. And luckily, Luke had graduated from Global Awakening, which was great. So like, Luke already had a really solid foundation in the Word, but he also believed in egalitarianism, which meant that we would submit to each other. Luke wasn't my boss, he wasn't my head. We were going to be mutually submitting to each other, which was like a deal breaker for me. Especially for you and I feel like with the personalities we have, we are not submissive, sweet housewives. Not at all. Like, we are spicy women. And especially being a Latina woman, like having, for me, it's been interesting having people, make comments about how I'm too much and my personality is just, almost abrasive. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. This is how Jesus made me. And I married the sweetest, kindest golden retriever man on the entire planet, who just wants God's best for me. And everything we do is in tandem with each other and in tandem with the Holy Spirit. And that's, I think, God's best for marriage. And we don't always do it right, but I feel like in marriage, as long as the Holy Spirit is our head, and we're walking in tandem with whatever the Holy Spirit is doing, we're going to be inside of God's will. Years ago, I had a friend, his name is Brad Herman. When I worked at Destiny Image, he was my supervisor. And when I was unpacking some of this, he and I were talking one day, and I asked him, I said, well, what do you believe about egalitarianism and complementarianism? And he said, well, he and his wife, Chris, he goes, we're egalitarian for sure. And I said, well, what does that look like for you guys? And he gave me the best example, and this is what Luke and I have really tried to live our lives in this same example. He said, we don't make decisions unless both of us agree. He said, because we both hear the Holy Spirit. He said, so God isn't going to tell Chris something, he isn't going to tell me. And so they had a big life-changing decision, and they were not agreeing. And they were both sure that God was telling them something different. And he was like, well, one of us is wrong, so we need to keep praying until we're both hearing the same voice. And, after a little more time praying, they came back, and whichever one of them, they came together, and after a while they had heard the Holy Spirit had spoken again, and it was clear. But he respected his wife so much that he never pulled well, I'm the head of the household card. And it was, I value that you hear the Holy Spirit as well as I do. Yeah. And so every decision they made together. Yeah. It was he never pulled a card. He never pulled the man card. It was, we are equals in our marriage, and I value your opinion and your voice equally to my own. Yeah. And he said, for them, that also worked out, even in how they split up chores, because he hates lawn work, and so he would rather do the dishes. And so Chris would mow the lawn, and he would do the dishes, and that worked for them. And my husband hates lawn work. We hire someone to do it because Luke hates it so much, and I'm allergic to the outdoors, so I can't do it. Right. But Luke takes the trash out, and he empties the dishwasher, and he cleans the bathroom better than I do. Yeah. And that's what works for us. Yeah.
How would you, let's say, especially because you have older children, how would you and Greg talk to them about equality in marriage, getting them set up? Because I don't think either of them are married yet. One, I think, is engaged.
My oldest daughter is married.
Okay.
My middle son is engaged now.
Okay.
Well, I homeschooled all my kids growing up too, and I made sure that all of them read Why Not Women. Mm-hmm. All of them grew up knowing that, okay, this is what God says about how a woman should function, and within the church and without. And I've always made sure that part of their curriculum was knowing how a man should treat a woman, how that they're supposed to love their wives, and how it's mutual submission. So I made that part of their upbringing. Not that, I think in kids' church, it's just a subject that doesn't really come up very much, even through youth group. It's not something that is really talked about. So I wanted to make sure that all my kids were aware of that, so that my daughter going into a marriage wasn't going to be under someone's thumb. And so that my boys, in looking for a spouse and in how they would treat a girlfriend, even, that they knew God's thoughts on how women are equal.
It's interesting because I grew up different. I grew up in a church where, we would split the boys and girls a couple of times a year, and the men would get the boys would get the porn talk, and the girls would get the save yourself for marriage talk. And and so as a 14-year-old girl, I was leaving with with this idea that my entire worth as a wife was in having children and, being led by a godly man. And so, like, for me, I didn't, having my personality, like, I was just like, it doesn't sound like a lot of fun to me. Like, but that's what we were being taught as girls. It was, you cover yourself and you don't wear a bathing suit around boys. Everything in our world revolved around protecting the men around us. And I'm like, I'm 15 years old. Like, can we give me something practical, like, for where I'm at right now? Like, and so the conversations that we were having in our youth group were not setting me up for a healthy marriage. They were setting me up for, believing that women were basically here for sexual gratification. We were here to take care of our homes, and we were here to make sure our husbands had everything they needed. And, for a woman who has personality like me, I am like, I want to do more than that. Like, I don't have anything against women who want to be homemakers. I think that's a beautiful thing. I think stay-at-home moms are such a gift. But I was like, I don't want to do any of that. I want to lead things. I'm administrative, and I want to be in charge of things, and I want to do really big things. And I was like, I don't know how I can do that if, and Luke and I are in our 30s, and we don't right now, we don't have kids. We're not sure when or if we'll have kids. And a lot of that is because, we're goal people, and there's so much we want to do. And, I've had, people be like, well, why aren't you having kids? At your age, you guys should be having teenagers. And I'm like, that's just a choice we made. I'm sorry. I don't have to tell you, but I feel like we set women up at such a young age that, their path is wife, mother. And then I talked to all these women who they've been a mother and a wife for so long that they're in their 50s and they have no idea who they are, because that's all they became for 18 years or 20, however long it was. And they completely lost themselves in these two roles, because that's what the church told them they could do.
It's interesting that men don't ever go, growing up, you're going to be the husband and father.
Right?
You don't hear that. I mean, no. But biblically, I think that is there some way. Okay, hey, you rule over creation, etc., but be fruitful and multiply. So there's this concept right away that, okay, you're going to lead, you're going to be a family, all these kind of things, but we only put it on the woman.
Yeah.
It's not about, you're also, yes, you're going to do this, but you're going to be a husband, you're going to be a father, and this is what is in that as well.
You're also responsible for your family. Yeah. Be a part of your household. Do the vacuuming. It's kind of that, it's like this weird, it's something I'm still breaking, a habit my husband is still trying to break me of, is when he is helpful around the house, I'm always saying, thanks for doing that. And he's always like, you don't have to thank me for taking out the trash. And I'm like, you're right. And it's like a habit I have to break, because my husband is just an equal part of our household. Mm-hmm. And that's what it looks like for us. And so, he cleans the bathroom so well. And I'm always like, thank you so much for doing that. And he's like, you're welcome, but I'm just being part of our house. It's like, stop telling me thank you for just being part of our family.
Maybe he's not worth of affirmation.
No, he is. He is. But he's so aware that he doesn't thank me every time I do the dishes. He doesn't thank me every time I sweep the floor. And I do the majority of the house cleaning because I work from home and I have more flexibility in my schedule. And he doesn't think to be like, thanks for doing the dishes tonight, but like sometimes he does. Sometimes like he'll be like, thanks so much for making dinner. Like he does. But it's not like a daily where we're just like walking around thanking each other for being part of our, and I feel like with men, we don't think to, there is such a weird standard that like when a man does something, we're like, oh my gosh, you did such a good job. Like a man does something with their kids and we're like, dad's babysitting. We're like, nope, he's being a father tonight.
Right, exactly.
He's not babysitting, he's being a father.
Right.
Where it's women, it's like, we're like, we don't ever say the woman is babysitting.
Right.
Mom's babysitting again,
Right.
And so I feel like, training our sons up to be equal parts of our household. And, like, this is why I was so glad that my mom gave all of us chores. Like the boys got chores, the girls got chores. Yeah. Like we were all equal parts of our household, because I think it's important to train boys and girls up in that mindset that we're all equal parts of our household. Yeah. Because we all need each other. It's not.
Yeah, I taught my boys how to do laundry.
Heck yes.
Like all those things.
We're in the middle of that right now.
I grew up, my mom did everything. I didn't learn how to do any of that until I was out of the house. But I'm not doing that. You are perfectly capable, and that's a job. You need to cook. It doesn't have to be the woman that cooks all the time. You all are going to know how, this is a skill you need to have for life. Right. And it's a skill you could bring into a marriage or relationship as well that is beneficial to everybody.
And women appreciate it.
Yes.
We appreciate when our husbands know how to do practical life things.
Yes.
Like my mother-in-law is a gift. I could not have married into a better, I married into the best family. But my mother-in-law set Luke up to be a good husband. Like she really did. Like she taught him how to clean. He cleans better than me sometimes. He's like more anal about it than I am. Like I do a really good job like when it comes to the kitchen and the dishes because I am weird about how clean our kitchen needs to be. But like you put Luke in to clean the bathroom and he's going to be in there for an hour, deep cleaning it every time. That's because his mom raised him to clean well and to be an equal, and so I'm always thankful to Bethany Wilston for raising a son who knows how to be a good husband. Yeah, because he's the best.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, ladies. This was awesome. Thank you again for joining us. This wraps up our month of women's history. Yeah. We can't wait to see you next time for our next episode with Coffee and Convo, and we hope to see you soon.
Yeah.